Okay. Kumlen Avlat Gemara. We are up to Masechta Daf Test Amid Alu Chagigah, and we are right in the thick of things about the different levels of kedusha of tahara. And we learned that there's a certain level that you maintain if you want to just to be tar chulin, and then we have a high level which is Ma'aser Sheni, or maybe we skip Ma'aser Sheni. We go to Truma, then we go to Kotshim. Each level is more serious, and the level below is not good enough. The shmira, the protection you do that somebody doesn't become tamei, is not good enough for a higher level. And then the highest level is mechatis, the water that you use for the paraduma you mix with the ashes. Today's shir should be in the schus of all the Yidden who are on Ukraine, that they should all be well, and chas v'shalom, nothing should happen to them. Okay, so we're up to Vitesse of Aleph. We are up to here umenot temra. Sorry, I'm in the wrong place. Ella, we're back to a question that we asked, that you came along and said that you don't have to have kavanah if you wash your hands. If you're tamei midrabanan, only your hands become tamei, or you immerse your hands, that you don't have to have kavanah. Even if you had no kavanah, your hands are still tired. What do you call it? Sorry, the other way around. The Bryce said you have to have kavanah. That's it. Sorry, the Bryce said you have to have kavanah. And then we asked a question that says another Bryce that you don't have to have kavanah. So we said Ma'aser needs kavanah, not Ma'aser needs kavanah, but chulin does not need kavanah. The chulin does not need kavanah. Okay, so we want to know, how do you know that? Says the Gemara, how do you know when it comes to chulin you don't need any kavanah? You put your hands in the mikveh, in the 40 saw mikveh, you wash your hands, and it's good enough. Ella Mahod Tanya, we learned in the Mishnah, Peiros shenaflu letoich amas hamayim. In order, just one introduction, in order for food to be kabel tuma, in order for food to be, it has to be made, it has to be prepared to be makabel tuma. How is it prepared to be makabel tuma? It has to become wet, and you have to be happy that it became wet. The Torah says kiyutan, if you put water on it, but it's spelled kiyutan, it was put by itself. So we said kiyutan dumid kiyutan, that even if it happened by itself, it rained, but if you were happy that it became wet, then it's good enough. So the Gemara says, so what happens? Fruits fell into a masamai, a little creek, which is usually an amma wide, or an amma deep, 6-12 deep. Upashat mishi yodot made. Your hands happen to be tamei, but you put your hands in the water to remove those fruits. You had no intention of cleaning your hands, so it was without kavanah at all to become tar. V'noton yodot tayres, your hands become tar. Why do your hands become tired? Because you don't need kavanah. Clear. Upeidas, as far as chul is concerned, upeidas ain't mechutan, but the fruits, if they fell into the water and you didn't demonstrate in any way that you're happy they became wet, the fruits are still not susceptible to be makabel tuma, because we say that it's as if they didn't get wet. But the im b'shvil sheyutchu yadav, if you put your hands to take out the fruits, but your purpose also was to get your hands, to immerse your hands in the mikveh. So then, or to wash your hands. Let's say you put your hands in there to wash your hands. Then, yod of tayris, the hands are tired, because obviously you went to the mikveh, and you intended to put your hands there. But v'hapeidas, in this case, the fruits, you're happy that they got wet. Why are you happy they got wet? So Rashi says an interesting thing. You're happy they got wet. So before Shem learned generally, you're happy they got wet is since you put your hand in the water to make your hands tired. So you're happy they got wet, and then that water that was on your hand touched the fruits as you were taking it out of the water. So therefore, it made the fruits susceptible to tumah, because you made it wet, right? Because you took your wet hand and you took out the fruits. But Rashi says a fascinating thing. Rashi says, you know why you're happy? Because you're saying sort of more than that. You're saying that the whole reason why the apples or the fruits fell into the water is so that you can put your hand in the water, make it wet, and then you take it out. So in other words, you look at the bigger picture. That the whole reason why this negative thing happened is for positive for washing your hands. So therefore, you're happy that it fell into the water, not because your hands now that are wet are touching the apple, but the fruits. It's because the chatchila, you're happy that it fell in. which is a very big vision, a very big picture. And Rashi says exactly the same thing, that's the same idea when it comes to the concept of Malacha She'ein Tzricha L'Gufa. What's considered a work that is not for the open purpose on Shabbos? So Tosha says it's not done the way it's done in the Mishkan. But Rashi says that what it means is that that if you would have been happy if the whole thing wouldn't have happened in the first place. You would have been happy it didn't have to do the malacha in the first place. Again, Rashi steps back and says, let's look at the total picture, not just the very, like a micro, a micromanaging here. We're looking at the entire picture and have the same idea here. Look at the entire picture. Anyway, so we see from here that you don't need have kavanah. There's a question. Rabbi a question. It says, Rav Nachman said by chulin you don't need kavanah. He asked him a question. It says if somebody went to and toivel himself for chulin, he immersed it for, let's say, chulin. But who's the chulin? He had a mind chulin. So our Mishnah says also the ma'isa is not good enough when it comes to ma'isa. It's not good enough. So you went to the mikveh having in mind that you're becoming Torah for chulin, and then if you touch something like Ma'aser Sheni, you're still metame because the mikveh didn't help because you didn't have in mind Ma'aser Sheni. So it seems clear to me, if you had kavanah, let's forget the Ma'aser now. It seems by chulin, the only reason why you become Torah for chulin is because you had in mind. If you didn't have in mind chulin, it wouldn't even work for chulin. So a question that you just said before, you don't need to have kavanah by chulin. Says this is what it means. Even though you had a mind for chulin, also the ma'aser. The Mishnah is saying even you don't really have to have in mind anything for chulin. The chiddush here is that even though you had a mind for chulin, so you would think that's better because you're having in mind mikveh here. So nevertheless, as far as ma'aser sheni is concerned, which is a step up, it's not good enough. Okay, I'll ask another question. I'll ask a question. It says, I'll ask a question. It says, in our Mishnah as well. Tova, we learned yesterday, if you went to the mikveh, so you had nothing in mind, it's ki'ilu, as if you didn't know mikveh. Isn't that clear that if you have no kavanah, it's nothing? My lab, ki'ilu tova klaus, if you didn't have a mikveh at all. No, so the Gemara again, lo no. Ki'ilu lo tova la ma'aseh. It's as if you didn't tovel yourself for ma'aseh. Avol tova lechul. But definitely it's good enough for chulin when its Mishnah says as if you didn't tovel, means you didn't tovel for ma'aseh. So what's the Avi's chiddush? Avi's chiddush is we would have thought that if you had no kavanah at all, is better than having kavanah. In the first case in Mishnah, you had kavanah for chulin, we say it's no good for ma'aseh. Maybe the fact that you had kavanah for chulin is as if you put a restraint on it or a constraint on it that it can only limit it to chulin. That's why it doesn't work for ma'aseh. But if you had nothing in mind, maybe it's better because now it's malleable. You can say use it for ma'aseh. And the chiddush Mishnah is no. Even if you have no kavanah, you cannot use it for ma'aseh. But chulin it works. Who saw? He thought just answering him. It's a very gefunfet to answer. It's a very weak answer. Nofik, he went out and he searched for Ashki. Found the brayso. It says so clearly. If somebody went to the mikveh and did not have anything in mind, as far as chulin is concerned, it works. Also the ma'aseh, but it's not good enough for ma'aseh. But clear as Rav Nachman was right for chulin, you don't need kavanah. We had a whole Gemara in Yevamos. We'll have a whole Gemara in Yevamos where a woman falls into the ocean and it's considered a good mikveh even though she had no kavanah. Let's say he went to the mikveh. Rabbi Elazar said he went to the mikveh, and he went up. Let's say he went into the mikveh, had nothing in mind. Then he went out, and as he went out, he was still talking about he's still wet, as Pesach says, and he can now have in mind whatever he wants, as long as he's still wet. And he had in mind to make himself tired, but nothing specific. He didn't have in mind chulin or ma'aser or truma or kosher, nothing specific. So now we're at Daf Yutes Amud Aleph, right in the middle of the page. And Rabbi Elazar is saying that if somebody went to the mikveh, we just concluded that you don't need kavanah for chul. He says somebody went to the mikveh and had in mind to go to the mikveh, and then but nothing specific, just to become tired. And then on his way out, or after he came out, he's still wet. He can now decide which tara he wants. The Moshe asked a question. It says, let's say you have a mikveh that's exactly 40 sa. And two people walk in. One person walked in and he's walking out. When he's walking out, he's removing some of the water. So the mikveh no longer has a sufficient amount of water inside the mikveh. But if the first person still has his leg or his foot inside the water. He's connected to the water. So the says here, it still has 1 foot in the water. If he had in mind, what do you call it? It says if 1 foot in the water, if he had in mind a small thing, he can now change it to a big thing. Allah, once he left, so what I just told you, by the way, is further than Gemara. So this is saying, stop. Your foot is still in the water, you can still change whatever you want. Allah, once he left the mikveh, shuvin machzik. So he can no longer have in mind. Whatever you did, you did. My love, ain't a machzik cloud. Sounds to me about that it doesn't matter if you had in mind a lenient thing or you didn't have, it's too late. Even though the Brais is talking about you had in mind something, you can change your mind to something stricter. It sounds like, and if you had in mind nothing, it's also too late once you left the mikveh. Question you just said before, as long as you're wet, you can still change your mind. Whereas like, no, a dehu, as long as the water is still inside the mikveh with 1 foot, even though you had in mind a specific thing, machzik, you can change your mind whatever you want. Ola, once you left the mikveh, so it depends. If you didn't change him, if you didn't have in mind anything specific, then machzik. Then you can change your mind to whatever you want as long as it's still wet. But if you, let's say, you had in mind something, let's say chulin, then ain't a machzik, too late to change. In other words, as we said in places before, I told you before, taste and answer. Once you have in mind something, that's worse than having nothing in mind. If you have nothing in mind, you have no restraint, you can change it whatever you want. Once you have in mind something, then you put a framework around it. You cannot change it unless you're still inside the mikveh. Says who's the one who says that if 1 foot is still in the water, it's as if you're still connected in the mikveh, you can do whatever you want. And who is that? Rabbi says that's Rabbi Yehudi. It follows the view of Rabbi Yehuda. What's the story of Rabbi Yehuda? That's the case I just told you. Now we learn mikveh shenimded. You measure the mikveh v'yesh by arba sa mechuvanos, exactly 40 sa. The Yodesh night to be went into the mikveh v'tovli and they went and they traveled zeh. They one after another. Harisha, the first guy is tired. Obviously, he had 40 saw. The problem is the second guy, because the first guy walks out, he takes some water with him. There's no longer 40 saw in the mikveh. Vasheni, the second guy, Tameh. The second guy is Tameh. Because he didn't have 40 saw. He says, Im hoya raglav sharishin noigez b'mayim. The first guy didn't leave the mikveh yet. His feet are still inside the mikveh. We're going to apply a rule that we use in Sukkah and Shabbos called gud achis. We draw downwards, and we imagine that all the water on this person's body, which generally is going to come down anyway, eventually, is as if it's connected in the mikveh, as if you have 40 saw inside the mikveh. He's afashayni torah. The second guy is also toy. So what do we see from Rabbi Yehuda that if your foot is in the water, it's as if you're still in the mikveh. So he must be the author of the one who says that if your foot is in the water, you can still change, even though you had in mind a lesser kedusha, you can change it to whatever you want, because it's as if you're still inside the mikveh. Nachman said, the machlekes is the miles the rabbanon. The argument of Yehuda rabbanon that is, let's say, if you were tamei only with the rabbanon, for example. Somebody who already went through the 7 days, and the 8th day has to bring a carbon. So he already went to 7 days, he went to the mikveh and everything else. He's now merely a mechusah kippurim. Having to go to the mikveh again, a mechusah kippurim, even though he went before, again, in order to be able to catch him, that's a chumrah only midrabban. Somebody who's an einin, a close member of the family passed away before he goes to after he's an einin. If he wants to study in kachim, he has to go to mikveh. Again, that is only the rabbanon. That's not tamei deraisa. So that's when Rabbi Yehuda says, now look, it's only the rabbanon anyway. So if it's exactly 40 saw, one guy stepped out, as long as his feet are still in mikveh, we're going to apply the rule of good achas. No, we're pretty lenient. But if let's say you're tummy from the Torah, then even Rabbi Yehuda will concede that that's not good enough. You know, real 40 saw mikveh having somebody's feet is not good enough. Then divrei hakel that Hasheni tamei, and everyone will agree that the second person is tamei is therefore behind the rapadas. Therefore, what we said before is rapadas, because everything we're learning right now is on the rabbanon. This idea that a mikveh for chulin is not good enough for meiser or meiser is good enough for trumah, that's all a chumrah mid rabbanon. So since it's only the rabbanon, it's Rabbi Yehuda who's lenient and says, look, if 1 foot is still inside, you can, you're still connected. I understand. So then it makes sense on Rabbi Yehuda. However, there's another version. The Igedam is another version of the Nachman and differently. Machlekes mitumotara. That the whole machlekes of Rabbi Yehuda Rabbanon is only if it's Mahat Torah. Rabbi Yehuda says, I'll apply the rule that's from the Torah, good achs. Ava b'maylos Rabbanon, if the whole tum is with Rabbanon, then even the rabbis will agree that one person is inside the mikveh, one person is standing on a step, it's good enough, it connects, because it's only Rabbanon anyway. They look pligid apodos. Apodos said before that these tumas rabbanon, changing your mind, which is all chumid rabbanon. It's that the person standing on the step, whatever, he can still change his mind to another stricter level of kedusha. And he said it follows Rabbi Yehuda. He obviously doesn't agree with Rabbi Nachman, because he holds that even when it comes to the rabbanons, Rabbi Yehuda is the one who says that we say good achas, not the rabbanon. And Nachman says no. When it comes to things which are only with the rabbanon, then everyone will agree, will apply the rule of good achas. We imagine that the water is connected. Amarul says, I want to ask a question. Rabbi Yehuda quotes Rabbi Yehuda. In other words, we're applying the rule of good achas. We imagine the water is drawn down. There's another rule that we learned in Hilchos Shabbos or in Sukkah. You have a wall that's 10 tefachim high and the roof is the schacha much higher. We imagine the wall goes up. Good asik. And same with Shabbos, it's a yachid, you have a machitz 10 tefachim. So do we say good asik also in this case here? Rabbi Yehuda says you say good achas by a mikveh. The person standing there and his feet are in the water. We imagine all the water is going down. Does he say good asik? What would be the case of good asik? He gives the following scenario. Can you table machtin with needles and tenedas, little golden forks, forks that you use to separate thread. Let's say one needle's inside the mikveh and the other one and it's sticking out a little bit. And the other one, and the top of the needle is all wet, and the next needle is touching the needle on the bottom. Do we say that good asik, we imagine the 40 saw of the mikveh is encompassing the needle that's on top as well, or not? So he says, when the rishon is inside the water, and the next one is a bit above the water. Good, do we say good achas is Rabbi Yehuda, that only we draw it down? Good asik lessly, but after going up. By Dilma, good asik nami isla. He also holds good asik also. And the logic in that is good achis, because water always, gravity pulls the water down. So therefore, it eventually all the water is going to come down. So therefore, we imagine it came down right now, and as if it's all down on the bottom, it's part of the mikveh. But going up, water does not naturally go up. So maybe we don't say good asik, or we just say it's a halachic thing, and therefore it doesn't make a difference, good achis or good asik. That's the question. Rabbi Yechon responded to Nesudin. We learned it says Shalosh Gum is you have three different what do you call it? Pits. Benachal, you have three different pits next to a Nachal river. There's a Helyene, Hatachtoine, Vemtzais. You have three, one above, one below, and one right in the middle. And they're on a mountain, right on a slope. So you want a little bit higher up, lower up, and then all the way down the bottom. And what happened here is, he says, the very top one, the very bottom one only made up of 20 saw. And then so the middle one is 40 saw. So the middle one is 100% good. The top and bottom only 20. The chadli shokshamim ayvered b'neim. There's a little stream of water that's connecting, it's like hashak, that's connecting the little pit that's 20 saw on top to the middle one, which is 40, and the bottom one, the middle one, which is 40. Is Rabbi Yehuda says that Meir would say matbil be'el yoyin. That Rabbi Yehuda said that Meir would say that you can use the top one as well, because we're going to say good asik. We're going to take that water from the middle one and connect it to the top one as if the top one has 40 saw as well. And Rabbi Yehuda, matbil yoyin. So what we see clearly from here? That l'chayda, that Rabbi Yehuda holds, you say good asik as well. We're going upwards, up a slope of a mountain, and we're going to treat the little pit on top as if it has 40 saw. Says the Gemara, but Tanya didn't learn the Brayse. Rabbi Yehuda says, Meir says, mat bilbel yoina, you can use the top one. But I say, I say you can only use the bottom one, that's the top one. In other words, we're going to say good achis. We imagine that the water goes down, and the bottom one differs as if it's 40 saw, but we don't say good asik as if the top one is. On Malay, so my question is to you on Malay. So I say to you, Rabbi Yechon said back to Ula, Tanya, if it says clearly that Yehuda holds, we don't say good asik, then he says so. I would have thought that's the same. Now I see that according to the second branch, it's only Rameh, but Yehuda argues, so therefore he argues. Rashi has a difficulty with this Gemara, doesn't really explain it. But Rashi's difficulty Gemara is you have two brises. The first brisa says that Meir Hoya the map of the Yoyin, Rabbi doesn't have a dissenting opinion, which sounds like Rabbi agrees. You go good asik, you go upwards. And the second brisa, Rabbi argues. So how do you know which brisa is correct? Why is Rabbi relenting so easily? Anyway, see the Gemara. If you went to the mikveh for chulin, behuchzik chulin, you had in mind chulin. So we said it's good enough for chulin, but it's not good enough for ma'aser. Says you want a mani masnisin. So no, we had yesterday in the Gemara a big machlekes here between Rameir and the Chachamim regarding ma'aser. How do we treat ma'aser? Rameir said that ma'aser is not as strict as truma. He put ma'aser on par with chulin. He put ma'aser on par with chulin. That he said that that for ma'aser you don't have to wash your hands, just like chulin you have to wash your hands. He put ma'aser on par with chulin because he says washing hands is only for going to a shlishi. Ma'aser doesn't go to a shlishi. And the Rabbanan disagreed. The Rabbanan said that anything that requires a mikveh, we had a Mishnah that says that anything that requires going to the mikveh for the Rabbanan. So we said that it's by truma it passes truma because it's a sheni. So by truma it makes it a shlishi, which passel, and by kachim it makes it a revi. No, if kachim touched a kachim that became a shlishi, kachim becomes a revi. There's a big machlekes of shaynim if truma, which is a shlishi, touches kachim, whether truma has the capacity to make kachim revi. Taisa holds no, but others hold yes. But if kachim touches kachim, that's a shlishi. It goes to a fourth generation. So the Rameir holds that ma'aser is not a generation. Ma'aser is like chulin; it ends by sheni, and the Chachamim say no. That by ma'aser as well is forbidden. So it seems that our Mishnah that says that ma'aser is a separate level. It's not the same level as kachim. He says it clearly. If you went to the mikveh for chulin, it's not good enough for ma'aser, which means that ma'aser is a separate level. Not like Rav Meir we learned yesterday. It's the same as chulin on par. It's like the Rabbanan who say no, it's a step up. Mani masnisin, who's also a Mishnah, obviously Rabbanan. The shani lose a difference to that between chulin and the ma'aser. The ma'aser is a step up, and therefore going to the mikveh and having in mind chulin is not good enough for ma'aser. Well, let's continue. Ema Sefer. Let's continue the next part of the Mishnah. It says, "Big day Amaretz, the clothes of Amaretz, even if Amaretz make sure it's tahor. Midris leprushin for somebody who wants to be much more careful, wants to make sure he eats, when he thinks are tahor. If he touches anything of an Amaretz, it's as if he became tamei midris, the same tum as Amaretz. As the Gemara explains in other Gemaras, that we're worried that maybe the wife of the Amaretz, who was a nida, sat on it, like it's talking about chul. So now there it says the clothes of Amaretz becomes tummy for Perushin, and then it says big day Perushin, the clothes of Perushin is tummy midris la'oichle truma, to eat truma. What about ma'aser? It doesn't say to those who eat ma'aser. In other words, it seems from this part of the Mishnah that ma'aser chul are on par. That if it's good enough for chul, it's good enough for ma'aser, but it's not good enough for the next step, which is truma, which follows the view of Rameir. Also Rameir, the Amar who says chul and ma'aser kadanya, they're both on par. So Reisha Rabbanan was safe for Rameir. The beginning of the Mishnah is like the Rabbanan that ma'aser is a step up, and that if you went to the mikveh had in mind chul, it's not good enough for ma'aser. And then the sefer seems to be Rameir that ma'aser and chulin are exactly the same, and the clothes of a Perushin is good enough for ma'aser, but not good enough for truma. So yes, you have no choice. Reisha Rabbanan was safe for Rameir. You're going to have to say that. We have to conclude there's two different opinions being voiced in our Mishnah. Says Gemara, doesn't like it. Masila, he learns, he actually changes, he revises the Mishnah. He'd rather revise the Mishnah than to say, well, it's two different Tanaim. The first half of the Mishnah follows one opinion, the second half another one, because that's really a last resort. And he says, instead of saying that there are 4 steps, actually add Chomesh Mailas, there are 5 steps, 5 grades. He adds that 5 grades, and he actually throws in ma'aser. That the clothes of Perushin are midras for ma'aser, and ma'aser for truma and truma. So he says there are 5 levels, and the 5 levels are Perushim is level number 1. Those who want to eat chul and tar. Then you have those who eat ma'aser, which is a step up. Then you have those who eat truma, which is a step up of that. Then you have those who eat kachim, which is a step up of that. And then mechatus, which is the highest level. Says the Gemara, Amar Amari Shmami, no. Somebody we say he eats al taras hakodesh is much more than just being careful being tar. He's eating chulin as if it's kachim. That's what it means al taras hakodesh, in the same level as kachim. Very, very particular, and make sure that if it's good enough for kachim, it's good enough for me. If it's not, I'm not going to eat it. So shmamino, says Ramadi, from here we learn out that chulin shenasu al taras hakodesh. If somebody eats chulin, they maintain such a high level of meticulousness that they make sure it's like that of kachim. He'll eat his chulin just like as if it's kachim. And he wants to make sure his whole family is very, very careful with it, and they know the laws of Taras HaKodesh. Is Kik Kodesh Dama? It's exactly like Kachar. Otherwise, it'd be another level. So how do you see that from our Mishnah? So he says very simply, why doesn't the Mishnah add a 6th level? The level of those people eat chulin, not Taras HaKodesh. You should have said that those clothes of Purushim who eat chulin generally tar, not the level of Taras HaKodesh. Their clothes are tummy for those people who eat chulin of Taras HaKodesh. You should have said that. So there's an ayah that there's no such step. Why? That means that that's included in kachim. Those who eat Taras HaKodesh, when the Mishnah says, and it's not good enough for those who eat kodesh, includes chulin, should not sell Taras HaKodesh. So anyway, what's the ayah? What's the ayah? Maybe it's that people in chulin Taras HaKodesh is not the same as kachim; it's a step lower. The dilma is actually an argument whether it's only equal to truma or whether it's equal to even lower than that. Like chulin, which is no better than that, and it's included in those. So the Dilma says, "What a high look on my level." No, I don't say another step. The idom is true. If you follow the opinion that says it's if you want to eat chulin and you want to maintain such a high, strict level of tahara, like kachim, all will give you is the level of truma. The Mishnah already mentioned truma, so it's included in that. If it's no better than chulin, I don't care if you ate chulin the stam tar or you ate chulin tar. At the end of the day, all it is chulin. That's chulin. It says chulin shenas al Taras HaKodesh. Chulin, it says in the Mishnah that chulin that is made al Taras HaKodesh are just like chulin. So two opinions. So whichever one it is, our Mishnah already listed those. It doesn't have to create a new step for chulin al Taras HaKodesh. So there's no argument one way. You could be either equal to kachim, you could be either equal to truma, you could be either equal to chulin. Element safe. I'll tell you where you learn from. I learned it from the very end of the Mishnah. The Mishnah gave two examples of great people, yet nevertheless, it wasn't good enough. For example, Yossi ben Yezer was a kohen. He was not a kohen. He was so particular, and he was one of the leaders of Klal Yisrael. And it says in our Mishnah that his towel was midras l'kodesh. If somebody had to eat kachim and you touched the towel of Yossi ben Yezer, you became tamei. In other words, it was not good enough. Right? That's what it says there. Our proof is not yet from there. We don't know he ate chulin Taras HaKodesh, but it continues. Yochanan ben Gudgada was a Levi. Oichel al Taras HaKodesh says the Mishnah clearly he ate chulin as if it was kachim, kol yom of his whole life, and yet the Mishnah says his towel was considered tummy. If a kohen had to be involved in the paraduma and mixing the water with the ashes and make chatas, he was tummy, had to cleanse himself. Seems like the only thing that Yochanan ben Gudgada wasn't good enough for was chatas. Or but the kodesh line for kohen wanted to go eat kachim and he touched the towel of Yochanan ben Gudgada was good enough. Clear that chulin Taras HaKodesh is the same level as Taras HaKodesh, as kachim. Almak so he holds a chulin Taras HaKodesh is exactly like kodesh. Okay, we'll stop over here.